Welcome to Karpool with Kirsten, brought to you by Fempowerment, the show where extraordinary women share extraordinary stories. My guest today has been called Britain's best therapist by Men's Health magazine. She spent over 30 years being the woman that Olympic athletes, CEOs, and Oscar winners call when nothing else is working. She built a method called Rapid Transformational Therapy, which is taught in over 100 countries. The founder of the movement I Am Enough, and globally recognized author, Marisa Peer. Welcome to the Karpool.
Thank you for having me.
You've spoken a lot about what you went through in your childhood and how you're fempowered to be the woman that you are now. But what's something that is a deep-seated core belief that was something instilled in you at that time of your life that you had to rewrite?
I would say 1,000% I'm not enough. I never felt pretty enough, smart enough, interesting enough, or indeed worthy enough. And I realized later 80% of us have that same thing, so I wasn't alone with that, but I felt very alone with it. I didn't really understand it, and I didn't know how to fix it, because children can't fix things.
And you said publicly that you grew up feeling very overlooked.
Yeah.
So what was the first moment that you realized, I am not enough in your own eyes?
You know, I had an interesting childhood. It wasn't terrible by comparison, but my father was my own head teacher, so I went to his school at 11. I would never recommend that because I felt so different, and children need to feel the same. As a young child, we know if I connect, I'm safe, and if I'm rejected, I'm unsafe. So children must find connection and avoid rejection. But I found rejection because I wasn't like all the other kids. So I think by 11, I knew that I was different. And you never want to be different as a child because when you're different, you can't connect. I also had a very beautiful mother, but my friends didn't have that. And my father was very academic. They were very, very unhappy. And it was just a strange childhood because it wasn't like other people. In fact, I used to pretend my grandmother was my mother. My grandmother had big fat arms. She was plump, she had grey hair. And I wish she was my grandmother because she was very maternal. My mother was always on a diet, really cared what she looked like. And, you know, bless her, you know, it's not to criticize her. She was very unhappy, but she just wasn't really maternal.
Yeah. And when you speak about these issues openly today, where do you go in your head when you have to
Well, I
relive
feel
it?
very lucky because I learned one thing early. If one person believes in you, just one, you'll be okay. So I had a grandmother who always believed in me, thought I was a genius. And although I came from a dysfunctional, with a capital D, childhood, I mean, from the outside it looked fine. But I had her, and if you have one person, that can be a teacher, a therapist, a relative, if one person sees you, you'll be okay. So I don't consider myself unlucky, I consider myself immensely lucky. I had that one person.
So your grandmother was the woman that was there for you?
She saw something in me. She would always tell me I was a genius, I was brilliant. I didn't hear that from anyone else, but she said it with such passion that I kind of believed it eventually.
So she was the one person that believed in you growing up. Who's
Yeah.
the one person that believes in you today that you depend
me.
on?
I believe in me. I absolutely believe in myself. I have a husband who believes in me. I have a daughter. I have a grandson who worships me. I worship him. And I have a whole team. We have a whole team of therapists and trainers, and we have a wonderful business. So I would say a lot of people believe in me. But I think it's most important that I believe in me.
I mean, I know that you said that your mom was not as maternal as what you had hoped, but did you ever share with them how you felt overlooked?
You know, I think we always think that's so easy. You go to, hey, Mom, you know, you're not listening to me. And Mom will go, well, let me tell you about my childhood. So when I would talk to my mother, she'd say, I was evacuated in the war. I was sent away from my mother. I was sent, you know, in London in the war. They sent all the children to villages, to the countryside. They wouldn't be bombed. So my mother would say, what are you talking about? You live in a nice house, you have 2 beds. I was evacuated. I had little people I didn't even know. I was parted from my siblings. So the problem is with going to a family member and saying, let me share my pain. They go, let me share my pain. My pain was worse than your pain. And that doesn't mean they're bad. It means they can't relate to your issue. They can only relate to theirs, which is why parents say you've never had it so good. You don't know you're born. When I was a kid, I didn't have anything, and here's you complaining that you haven't got a phone or a laptop. So it's much better to talk to someone who isn't a family member. You know, we need to feel heard. That's so important, to be heard and to be seen. But if your parents, for whatever reason, let you down in your childhood, the belief that, oh, now they're old, they're going to understand. I mean, they might, but often people who are cold and mean just become cold and mean old people. People who are withholders just become older withholders. You can, there's no doubt, have a parent who changes dramatically, but you also can find one who doesn't understand you and they're still the same.
So would you say that they completely dismissed how you're feeling?
They didn't dismiss it, they just didn't get it.
So then I would say that that directly links back to the theory that hurt people hurt people.
I mean, my father told me once that I had the most wonderful childhood. I'm like, when? When my first book came out, he said, you know, you were everything to your childhood. It was wonderful. I'm like, was it? I don't remember that. Even when my parents divorced, they had multiple affairs right in front of us. We all knew what was going on. My father would disappear for the whole weekend. Nobody knew where he was. My mother tried to kill herself several times. My father said, you had an idyllic childhood. I'm like, did I? But you see, we lived in the countryside. My father came from the city. I guess he looked through a filter. Wow, look at your lovely life. My father's father was a fireman, so he was in danger every day of not coming home. My father's parents were relatively poor, and we were comfortable. So he couldn't see my life. He could only see it in relation to his life, although his parents actually doted on him. And my father was always doted on. So I guess he couldn't relate to somebody who wasn't. He just didn't understand.
Well, you mentioned that your parents had multiple affairs right in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
Did that in any way impact your level of trust in
Oh,
relationships?
sure. For a long time, you know, I when I became old enough to start dating, I dated the lens of it doesn't last. It's never going to work. I never expected it to last. I remember the first love of my life asking me to marry him and said, you know, I'm a Catholic and this has to be forever. And I said, well, it won't be forever. Everyone in my family was divorced. I couldn't even understand that. And I said, no, we can have an amazing 10 years. Now I think I was crazy. We can have an amazing 10 years, but it won't be forever. Because I'd never seen that. You know, children learn what they live. And what I saw was just betrayal. I saw my father betraying my mother. My mother had an affair with our next-door neighbor for years, so she betrayed my father and her next-door neighbor, who was her friend. And then she actually married her other best friend's husband. So you learn what you live, and I didn't have any way to see a beautiful relationship. I saw my father love his career and get so much back, and I remember thinking, you need a great job. I look at my parents, I think you need a great job that's fulfilling, because when the marriage goes wrong, it wasn't if, it was always when. This great career will help you. My mother didn't have anything to cover. My father would go to work, and he got great comfort and joy, impact, satisfaction, meaning and purpose. So I always thought, you know, I need that. If I have a great career, it will ease the pain of a relationship going wrong. And it was very much, I expected them to go wrong. And that's exactly what happened. I had a great career, but I couldn't say I didn't have great relations. I dated some lovely, lovely men, particularly my first boyfriend and my second. But I had this preconcept, it won't last, it won't last. And when you believe it won't last, because you make your beliefs, and then your beliefs make you, and then you have confirmation, well, I should do it for proof. So I set about making those relationships end. I had a lot of destructive behaviors because I believe they can't last. Might as well end it early.
Well, I mean, you were speaking about the fact that you had so much instability in your childhood. So do you think that now as an adult, your nervous system learned to crave the chaos?
No, I think it's completely changed. You know, the thing is, as a great therapist, your job is find the pattern, make sense of the pattern, change the pattern. So I picked up very early on that my grandmother loved me, but that love, I couldn't have it all the time. So I'd go into a relationship and somebody could love me, but it couldn't be forever. So I began to see when I was in my 20s, well, no, my 30s actually, this pattern that love doesn't last. So once I found it, I stopped it completely. You know, you can't fix what you don't understand. You can't heal what you don't feel. And once I got it, oh, of course, then I changed it completely. Then I got married, and I've had a beautiful marriage. I don't have any incident. My husband worships me. I'm very lucky. I'd never had anyone put me first, apart from my grandmother, but he does. And of course, your brain wants what is familiar. When I was a kid, what was familiar was coming last. Now what's familiar is coming first. And I can I can remember it, how it was, but it's so unfamiliar now. I would never date someone that put me last or didn't treat me the way I know I deserve to be treated. So the good news is our behavior is not fixed. Our beliefs are not fixed. When you find out why you think what you think, which might be I never had a dad, so who's going to love me? I was put up for adoption, so I'm not lovable. You get to change it. You find it and change it. There's no point in finding it and talking about it, or finding it and continue. You have to find it and change it.
You mentioned something. You said that you believed at that time that love doesn't last.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe at the time you also felt that you weren't deserving of love?
Well, yes, I think if you believe it doesn't last, that probably does go hand in hand. It doesn't last, and I'm not worthy of making it last. So I'm certain I had all those beliefs. Love doesn't last. I certainly had I'm not enough. So I thought if somebody loved me and I could get them to love me, it's not that hard actually, but I always thought they'd get disappointed. Along the line they'd find out, oh, you're not what I thought you were. So I always had that belief that even though I could find someone to love me, they'd be disappointed long term, because that's how my father was with my mother. She was stunningly beautiful, and after they divorced, he married a very plain headmistress, and he was blissfully happy. They were totally energetically a wrong fit, and all her beauty. And she was very vivacious. I mean, she just wasn't cut out to be a head teacher's wife. She always wanted to be a dancer. But all her beauty and her energy and her vivaciousness was for nothing, because he didn't love her.
And that's why you said that your career is so important.
It was so important to me, yeah.
Because you feel like maybe in a way that your career is something that no one could take away from you?
That was going to be the panacea. That was the Band-Aid. My career was the paracetamol, the time, whatever you call it. It took away the pain. I always thought if I have a great career that's engrossing, it will take away the pain. I never thought, well, there won't be any pain. I'll find someone to love me. It'll be amazing. I didn't have that thought. I had a thought, if I have a great career, it will be the balm for the pain of the relationship that will never work. But I don't think that now. I haven't thought that like that for years.
I mean, when you relive this now by speaking openly about it, when you said that you focused on your career so that you could avoid being hurt in your personal life, I mean, obviously a part of you had to feel like, okay, if I'm invested in my professional life, then my personal life can't hurt me to a certain extent. But then do you think that that was just a distraction so that you wouldn't actually have to work on your personal life?
No, it was a belief. It was, we have beliefs that are fleeting thoughts, and we have beliefs that are fixed. It was a very fixed belief at the time. I mean, I dated, but because I thought it wouldn't work, I just didn't date quite the right people. I did do some work on myself. I remember playing that song by the Rolling Stones, I'm Lucky in Love. I used to play that in my car. If I play that song, I'm lucky in love, it will happen. But of course it couldn't happen because I had these underlying beliefs. Your mind, your rules. I had these rules. Relationships hurt. Relationships don't work. So singing that song, I'm lucky in love, 100 times a day, or writing out affirmations, I'm loved, it doesn't work. You must find the underlying cause, which is I'm not worth it. In fact, to find love, you have to do one thing. You have to convince yourself that you are deeply worthy of love. And I didn't have that, but eventually I gave it to myself.
And I think that's really important. I mean, believing in yourself. And I mean, directly into what relates into your book, Your Mind, Your Rules, that what the mind believes, the body reflects. But
what the mind believes, the body actively creates. Even more. I mean, we don't realize enough how we think a thought and our body makes it. And if I think a sad thought, my eyes fill up with tears. If I think an embarrassing, I go bright red. If I think a sexual thought, I might get turned on even by myself, because your mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and imagined. So you might be watching a cat video, a trapped cat on YouTube being rescued by, I don't know, a wolf. But your brain thinks it's real. Same thing when you watch a terrifying film or a gruesome film. So because the brain doesn't know, is this real or imagined? Is it going on in reality? You're just up here. If you start to tell yourself better things, you get a better outcome.
I guess it's all about perspective as well. I mean, you could sit there and you could say, oh, I have so much pressure on me at work, but what a privilege it is to be in a position where I have pressure on me.
It's like when I could say I was so unlucky my parents didn't appear to love me. But actually, I flipped that to I'm so lucky I had one person. It's like I could say I'm so unlucky I got cancer twice, as I'm so lucky. Here I am 9 years later, and I really believe that me and cancer are done forever.
How do you feel that the cancer changed your life in terms of rediscovering a new version of yourself?
It didn't change my life. It proved to me that what I was doing was correct, because when I got the first cancer diagnosis, of course I was very shocked for about 2 days, but then my brain kicked in. You know, your brain should not run you should run it. Your brain should work for you, not the other way around. And my brain began to say, you can fix this. This is a blip. This is nothing. Actually, there's a song from a chorus line called "It Was Nothing and It Was Nothing," and I've often played that song when I've had to have surgery, because if you go and I feel nothing and nothing, then you feel nothing. So I began to sing that song in my head over and over again, and I was very lucky. I had womb cancer. I didn't need a womb, so instead of thinking, oh my God, that's a stroke of luck. I mean, it's so interesting. First you do this, but then it does you. So first it's what you do, but then it's who you are. And I've spent so long in my career saying everything is great, everything is fine, I've got this, that when cancer came, my brain said, well, this is nothing, it's just a blip. And indeed it was just a blip.
Do you think that all the things that you've had to face in your life, you know, in terms of like a chaotic childhood and toxic patterns and cancer as well, that your brain or your body learned to adjust in survival mode?
I think what I learned, which I would never ever regret, is it's up to me. My parents just weren't equipped to give me the childhood I wanted, but now I'm glad, because it gave me something called I'll show you, and I'll do it myself. So 3 years ago I got run over quite badly. I was in a pedestrianised street, of all places to be run over. It was a street that was shut to traffic. It was a Christmas market. But this van came down and managed to run me over. And for 6 months actually that's not true. They ran me over and I was told I wouldn't be able to walk for 6 months. And I was lying in the hospital with my leg in plaster. And they brought in this orthopedic footwear and they said, these are the shoes. I'm like, don't even show me those. I will never wear them. I said, if you think I'm wearing orthopedic shoes, you don't know me. I've got my heels on now. I will never wear them. And I refused to look at them. I said, I'm not looking at the brochure. And they said, well, you know, you're going to have a limp now. One leg to be shorter than the other. You won't be able to walk properly. And I said, no, go out of my room. I cannot let that in, because that's what I learned the most. You are influenced by what you let in and don't let in. And I knew that if I tried those shoes on and let these people in, I was letting it in. So I banned them from my room. And I was going to walk in 6 weeks. And my husband had just actually bought me some Chanel shoes. Poor thing, he had no idea. We were at an airport. He went, let me buy you some shoes from Chanel. And he went, oh, that's nice. Mm-hmm. He went, wow, I feel like I've been mugged. You couldn't quite understand how much they cost. But I had these Chanel shoes. I was never going to not wear them. And my daughter said, well, you can sell them. I'm like, no, I'm not selling them. I'm wearing them. So I told my brain, I'm going to walk really fast. I was told I couldn't walk for 6 months. I walked in 6 weeks. I didn't have a limp. My legs are exactly the same length, and I do wear high heels very comfortably. But it was a not letting it in, and I don't think we emphasize enough what you let in and do not let in will run your life. So if you let in someone saying you're no good, you're boring, you're not beautiful enough, you're not qualified enough, you're not interesting enough, how that shapes your life. But if you say, well, I'm not going to let that in fact, about 2 years ago, Demi Moore was getting an award, and she said, I was told that I would never be enough. And she let it in. But Elizabeth Taylor said, I was told I'd be an actress, but never a movie star. I went, well, watch me then. And I became the highest paid actress in the world. So shortly after she was told, you'll be an actress, but not a movie star, she got the part in Cleopatra. She asked for £1 million. That was in the 60s. She got more than the male lead. Because when they told her that, didn't let it in. So the thing to pick up is, people don't tell you who you are, you tell them. No, I am not going to let that in. And it's so important when someone says this, I don't love you anymore, you're boring, you're old, you can't get this job, you'll never do that, to say, watch me, let me show you. And I always had that. My parents sent both my brother and sister to private school, but I went to the normal state school. But it gave me something they didn't have, which is called I'll show you. I'll show you. I'll prove it to you. And it's quite good to have that passion, that hunger to show people who you are. So people showed me who I was, which was very much the girl least likely to see. The girl who didn't go to private school, they showed me who I was, but then I turned around and showed them. And sometimes that's a good thing. If they give you everything, where's your fire?
Mm-hmm.
Where's your hunger?
Yeah.
Where's your drive?
I think that a lot of women have that skill in them that they just don't know how to bring it out, that level of resilience that I can do anything I put my mind to.
Well, and also pop culture says that I'll die if you leave me. I'm nothing without you. I can't breathe without you. So a lot of our culture says we are fragile, like a little flower, and easily broken. When we're broken, that's it. But the truth is we are not fragile. We are powerful and resilient.
How can Alyssa distinguish between a temporary dip of confidence versus a deep-seated core belief?
A deep-seated, well, a temporary dip is I went for that job. I thought I'd get it and I didn't. And that really upset me because I was so sure I'd get it. But I can go back and look at, okay, what did I do wrong? What could I improve? So that's temporary. I was dating this person. I thought we'd be married and didn't work out. But a core belief is you don't even expect to get that job. You don't expect to get married. You don't expect anything. So you keep yourself playing small. So a core belief you're not enough means you wouldn't even put yourself out there. And even if you did go, well, it's not going to work. I knew it wouldn't work.
Let's speak about imposter syndrome for a second.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so how would you say someone has to rewrite their internal script without lying to themselves?
You see, I think you should lie to yourself. I think you should lie, cheat, and steal every day of your life. Lie to your brain, cheat fear, and steal back confidence. So if you're saying, oh, I'm not qualified for this job, lie, say, I am the best person for this job. They're lucky to have me. I got a lot of skills and I can learn more skills. If you're going on a date, don't go, gosh, I hope they like me. Go, I hope I like them. I hope they're good enough for me. I hope they can share their life with me because I've got so much to offer. So you've got to flip the script. But a few years ago I was in one of probably the most famous actors in the world. I went to see him in his house. He was playing a very iconic figure and he was very worried. And we both had imposter syndrome. He's thinking, who am I to play this icon? I'm thinking, who am I to come to your house and tell you how to play an icon? So we both had it, but here's the difference. We carried on anyway. I did my session with him and said, of course you can play this icon better than anyone on the planet. And he played the icon and he did a beautiful job. So 80% of women have imposter syndrome. The question is not, have you got it? Are you going to let it stop you?
Yeah.
And only 40% of men have it, which kind of tells you a lot. But you have to do it. I mean, imagine you're pregnant. You have no idea how to raise a baby. Oh my God, I don't know what to do. You have 9 months to get ready. By the time you have your third baby, you don't have imposter syndrome at all.
Yeah.
The first time I spoke on stage, I had to literally cling on to the podium for dear life. My knees were knocking. Now I can walk around a room. It wouldn't occur to me to be nervous. So if you have imposter syndrome, you've got to do it anyway because it goes away.
Yeah. I mean, these are all concepts that are readily available in all of your books.
Well, in this book in particular, I talk about something interesting, which is the human brain wants what it already knows. Your brain wants what is known and familiar. It doesn't want what is unknown and unfamiliar. And weirdly, if you've never had love or wealth and you get it, you'll reject it. 75% of lottery winners are bankrupt in 3 years. 90% of inherited wealth is gone in 3 generations. So if something is unfamiliar, praise, kindness, love, wealth, success, you will actually set about rejecting it because the brain wants to go back to what is known and familiar. So so many women date awful men because they had an awful parent who put them down and criticized them. So that is the fact. But here's another fact. You get to choose every day what to make familiar. So if you date losers, decide, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make familiar someone putting me first, which is what I had to do, having had a very absent father and a belief that I would never be first. I had to say, I'm only going to attract someone who puts me first in front of everything. And all I had to say was one thing, which is not, it's so hard. I said it's unfamiliar, and I'm going to make it familiar. That's all I said. It's unfamiliar, I'm going to make it familiar. And of course I had to make a point of noticing that I dated people that often were very hard work, because that's what I knew. My father's love, I had to earn it, work for it, chase it. show him I was worth it. But when I stopped doing that and changed the belief and said the love of a good man with great partner skills who puts me first is familiar, I was married in 10 months. That's all I had to do. Didn't have to change my weight, my shape, my size, my hair, my face, my clothes. No. You have to change one thing. The belief that you are deeply worthy of love just the way you are.
I love that. I love that. I feel like that's a very important message that women need
Yeah,
to.
just the way you are. I mean, you can play that Barry White song or Billy Joel. I love you just. In fact, I used to play a lot of Barry White songs. And I didn't really believe them the way I believe them now.
I want to speak about your books for a second.
Sure.
Because 6 books, 7 books.
Yeah, I'm
4
just
of
writing
which,
my 8th now.
Wow, 4 of which are Amazon bestsellers. That's quite an accomplishment. But I want to know, from a writer's perspective, what is your writing process like, especially when it involves such vulnerable concepts?
Yeah, so the first thing about writing is it's very easy to go, oh, writing is so hard. You know, many years ago, I got a book advance. I had an article about me in the Guardian newspaper, and a publisher gave me money to write a book, and I gave them the money back because I couldn't imagine, I was only 25, how I could sit and write. I thought it's been so alone and so solitary, and I couldn't bring myself to do it because I think writing is so lonely. I don't have to be by myself for weeks at a time. But of course, many years later, I had to flip that, and before I wrote my first book, I had to say writing is thrilling. It's engrossing, it's rewarding, it gives me so much back. And what was so odd is I only had to say that for about 2 weeks, and I think, wow, there's nowhere else. On a beautiful day, there's nowhere else I'd rather been sitting at my dining table writing this book. So it became my reality. You know, your words shape your reality. If you don't like your reality, go back and change your words. Words are the thread on which you string your every experience. And before you write a book, you got to tell yourself, I'm ready to write, I want to write, I love writing. Writing thrills me, it lights me, it gives me everything. And then you can begin to write. So some people say I write for an hour a day. Some people write all day. And writing is rather like drawing a thing. I've got to start at the beginning. And no, you don't do that. If your kid is drawing a picture, they do a house, and then a tree, and then the clouds, and then the grass. And start anywhere. Start in the middle, start at the end, start with anything at all, start anywhere. So for my first book, I kind of had an idea, and I began to put it together. But I've never ever written a book where I start at chapter 1 and finish at chapter 10. So I'll put my ideas down. I suppose it's a bit like making a cake or designing a house. It just all comes together. I actually find writing so thrilling that I can do a 16-hour stretch. I can get up and write and write and write and write and get very involved in it. And I can write books very quickly because I go to bed wake up thinking about, oh yeah, I just run down and add that bit too. My poor husband, you know, he gets a bit left out when I'm doing my 16-hour days. We can only do that maybe for about 6 weeks to 2 months, but I can get a book finished in maybe 3 months, less actually. But then, of course, once you've written the book, that's the easy part. Writing is not hard. Then you have to do line edits. You edit and you edit and you edit. And then comes the really hard bit, getting that book to sell. I had no idea when I wrote my first book that the work involved to make it sell was longer and harder than the work involved in writing. And that's still the case today. So I can write a book, but I got to spend a lot of time doing book tours, book signings, keeping your book positioned. So you may say, I'm just going to write a book about my life and sell it, and it doesn't matter. But I was always very clear, and it's very clear, do I want to write a book? No, I want to write a best-selling book that changes people's lives. So I didn't just want to write a book. I wanted to write a book that changed people's lives, and more than that, was a bestseller. So I was very clear what I wanted. So when you write a book, be clear. And if you're writing a book, a self-help book, remember, people don't buy a book, they buy a promise. I can make you healthy, I can make you wealthy, I can make you happy, I can make you loved, I can make you thin. We love these titles.
Yeah. Would you say that you're a bit of a perfectionist in terms of knowing when it's done?
No, I don't think you ever are. I think I've always, my book's finished, but then the editor comes on, and then when it's finished, you think, oh my God, I could have made it better. I should have put in this. I could have done that. So I don't think that's ever the case. I think whenever you finish your work, you think of, it's a bit like reconstructing a home. You think, really should have put that over there. I really should have done that. I wish I'd thought about that. I don't think you're ever done as a writer, but you have to be willing to dump about 25% of your work, take stuff out. But I wouldn't say you're ever really done.
So after finishing one book, what would you say is your decompression process?
Well, you see, because I say it's so engrossing and rewarding and thrilling, I want to start another one. So before this book was published, I was already writing my 8th book, which is nearly finished. So as this book finished, I had another one on the go. Mm-hmm. Because if I say it's thrilling, then when it finishes, I think, oh, I miss it. I quite like it.
Yeah.
I quite like sitting in bed writing and sitting on a train writing, and I quite enjoy it.
You're famous for saying first you make your beliefs and then your beliefs make you. So which of your current beliefs are you still working on rewriting today?
Oh, that's a great question. First you make your beliefs, and then your beliefs, and then you have confirmation. By looking for proof of what you have chosen to believe, and you find it. Beliefs I'm working on today, well, I guess it's still the same. You know, I've written a great book. People want to read it. There's a lot of competition out there as a writer. There's always someone who's got a better book than you, who's got more readers than you. Think, oh, what are they doing that I'm not doing? But, you know, you're never really done. I believe that you're here to find your gift, perfect your gift, and share your gift. So my gift was always being a therapist, being a writer, being a speaker. But I'm never done with perfecting. I'm always reading other people's books, going, you know, I'm just reading Start With Yourself by Emma Grede. It's such a great book. I thought, wow, that's a great book. I think if you think I'm done, I found my gift, I perfected it, I'm selling it. No. Perfecting your gift is a lifelong process. So I think my belief is I've got to keep perfecting my gift and my craft.
You said something interesting. You said that as an author, there's always someone that's selling more books than you, that's more famous than you. And I think that in life, there's always someone that's smarter than you, more achieved than you.
And taller than you, and
taller
younger
than you, richer than you, smarter than you. But there's no one that's you.
Well, you know, you mustn't compare yourself. I'm sure you've heard this expression, comparison is the thief of joy. So I could compare myself to everybody, but they're not me. And I could look at Mel Robbins and go, wow, look at Letnam, that's a writing sensation. But I go, yeah, but I'm a therapist. Mm-hmm. So when my audience are getting therapy, Mel's audience are getting great help and wisdom, but mine are getting therapy. I wouldn't compare myself to Mel and say she's better. I wouldn't say I'm better. I'd say we're different.
Yeah.
So it's a really bad thing to compare yourself. But only two things can happen when you compare. They're better than me. Oh dear, now I feel deflated. Or, very rarely, I'm better than them. Now I feel annoyed. If I'm better than them, how come they're selling more than me? So when you compare yourself, it's never going to be good. If you think you're better, you're going to be frustrated and angry. If you think you're worse, you're going to feel stuck and blocked. You are unique. You can't compare yourself. It's like comparing fish to chicken. They're not the same. They both have their own merits.
Yeah. Well, in your career, you've worked with so many A-listers. What's the one thing that you would say they all have in common?
They're not enough. And I was really shocked the first time I worked with a major movie star who said, I'm not enough. The first time I worked with royalty and they said, I'm not enough. The first time I saw an Olympic athlete, I don't know how I got that medal. It was an absolute fluke. So I'm not shocked now because it's the common denominator of all of our issues. I'm not enough. But I was very shocked then. But of course later I looked at, I watched Whitney Houston's movie. I watched the movie about Michael Hutchence. I watched the movie about Amy Winehouse. I watched the movie about Marilyn Monroe. And there it was. Judy Garland too, I'm not enough. I don't know if you've seen that movie Blonde about Marilyn, but you could see by the time she was 5 that poor girl was at such a disadvantage. When Whitney Houston said, can I be me? When Amy Winehouse said, I told you I was trouble, I'm no good. There it is.
Yeah.
I'm not enough.
I mean, speaking of A-listers, without naming names, what's the most surprising thing that a billionaire has cried about in your office?
Yeah, I worked recently with a billionaire who had everything, but he inherited it from his father. And he believed he wasn't worth it. And he was getting rid of a lot of it in really bad investments because he believed he hadn't earned it. And if you haven't earned it, you want to get rid of it, which is why so many rock stars end up broke. Because the feeling is, well, I wrote this lyric, it took me 5. I didn't earn it. And if you don't earn it, you need to get rid of it. So he his belief was my father earned this, and it was, I don't deserve it. I'm not worth it. I got it too easily. I had to really work with him to get rid of that. So your father wanted you to have it, but now do your own thing. You can never be your dad, but you can use this money for a lot of good. So stop worrying about having it, do good with it, and then you'll feel better.
What's one A-lister that you wish you could work with, or that you hope to work with?
Well, the person I wanted to work with is Amy Winehouse. And I spoke to her on the phone, and she said, there's no point. I don't deserve to be helped. And I remember her father asked me to work with her. I wanted to work with her, but she was very resistant because she believed she wasn't worth it. You know, she was treated for bulimia, anorexia, drug abuse, and alcohol. She was never treated for the real issue, which is she never felt worth it.
You mentioned bulimia. You spent 20 years with an eating disorder. What finally broke the loop for you? And how would you advise to break the loop for others out there?
Well, you know, my mother was always on a diet. That's all I saw. My mother was dieting. She'd eat a yogurt. So, again, you learn what you live. My mother didn't eat cakes. Biscuits were not in the house. Chocolate was not around. My grandmother would bake stuff and send it, and my mother would hide it. So my sister and I had this weird thing about where are the cakes? There aren't any. But we knew there were, so we'd ransack and find them, eat them. And who ate the cakes? We'd go, what cakes? She said there weren't any cakes. So my mother couldn't really win. And we only wanted them because they were so forbidden. Mm-hmm. So because they were so forbidden, other people could have them, but not us, they became very desirable. So again, it was understanding this pattern. When I was a kid, we were not allowed fizzy drinks or anything sugary. But now I can have that every day. I've got my own money. I live near a little store. Who's telling me I can't have it? It's my brain. So I had to kind of go back to my brain and say, I can have Kit Kats for 5 a day for the rest of my life. I can eat 80 Kit Kats. I can, when I'm 102, I can still eat them. But actually, I don't need them. And I found this great expression that changed my life. I'm choosing to say no to sugar. Choosing to feel great about it. I'm choosing to do this because if you say I can't, I want cake, I can't have it, I want a Big Mac, I'm not allowed, you want it more. If you say I could have it, but I'm choosing not to, your brain understands, I don't want that, let me take the desire away. So having had an eating disorder that really was the bane of my life, when I had my own daughter, I didn't want her to grow up like that. I wouldn't hide stuff from her. In fact, you know, she had chocolate, she had ice cream, she had cake. She's quite a foodie to this day. Obviously, I didn't let her have them indiscriminately, but I didn't also ban them. I remember being in the street, she said, Mummy, can I have that chocolate? I said, yeah, sure, you can have it. And we took it home, I put it in the cupboard, she never asked for it. It was knowing she could have it was more than eating it, and knowing I couldn't have it meant I wanted it more. So I had to work out the psychology of food, which is very interesting. You know, we think we're so modern, we've got a primitive brain that says that sugar is very rare. If you come across some ripe mangoes, you might not see them again for a year, so eat as many as you can because they're scarce and a very safe source. No one says, oh, eat loads of lettuce, that's fantastic. But sugar was a great source of safe calories. Mm-hmm. So our brain says, if I come across honey or ripe mangoes, I've got to eat as many as I can and wake up and go back and get even more. So when we have ice cream in the fridge, our brain goes, you know what, go back. And no one says that lettuce, I keep going back for another leaf, another pea, another carrot. But the ice cream, the cake, the cookies, they do call your name because you are wired to find sugar, gorge on it and go back till it's all gone. But when I understood the psychology, I could say to my brain, hey, hang on a minute, this is not scarce. I live next to a store. There's a vending machine next to my office. It's not scarce, it's not my friend, and I prefer to live without it. And once I gave my brain that message, my brain worked back because your psychology talks to your biology every day. And my psychologist had to tell my biology, this is not my friend. Especially when I got cancer, I had to really say, you know, I don't want glucose in my body, it feeds cancer.
Take me into a session of RTT. What can I expect in the first 10 minutes?
So the first question I normally ask people, I'll give you an example. I had a girl I was working with live on stage in my class because I do live training, and she had such severe OCD that she had to clean her teeth for 20 minutes, about 6 times a day. She had to shower for an hour several times a day, and if it went wrong, she had to start the whole thing all over again. So you can imagine how many hours were spent trapped in her bathroom. And the first thing I asked her is, what happened to you? Not what's wrong, what happened to you? There isn't a baby on the planet that says, gosh, my crib doesn't look tidy. In fact, I look at my grandson, his toys are everywhere. They like a bit of mess. And so she began to tell me her life. She began to tell me her story. She was born into a family of chaos. The mother had several kids with different partners. Her own father died. She was given to her mother, then her grandmother, then put into foster care because the mother couldn't really cope. So you imagine this little girl lives in chaos. The only thing she can control is her own little corner of the bedroom. Every book is just so, every toy, and the brain says, oh, I thought I was living out of control, but I'm controlling this bit here. Mm-hmm. So when you can't control in here, you try to control it. Every cushion has a karate chop. Everything is just so. So she began to understand that the OCD had a purpose. It said every fork and knife is just so you do have control. I told her the truth, darling, the only thing you can ever control are the thoughts running through your head, the words coming out of your mouth, the decisions you make. This was a little girl. And this OCD had a purpose. It was to make you feel you're in control, but you don't need it anymore. And I made her say over and again, that's not me, that little girl is not me, it's not me because, it will never be because. I made her state it. Why is that 4-year-old girl who had all the teddies lined up not you? And she described all kinds of awful scenes in her life. But that wasn't her. Once the brain began to say, oh, that was me, but it's not me. She said, the weirdest thing is I went home, went to clean my teeth, and the voice said, you're done now. 3 minutes is quite enough. And I've never done it since. It just stopped overnight. So I loved that. In one session, she understood the role the OCD was playing. And for many people, the illnesses, the phobias, the habits have a role. And when you can understand, oh, the role was to make me safe because a child needs to be safe. She couldn't feel safe in that house, but this little bit of OCD gave her safety. And then it went away. So it was one session. And what we did is we had a look at the past. And then we had a look at how it impacted her because the same scene can impact 10 people differently. She had a lot of brothers and sisters. They didn't have OCD. So she looked at what happened to her, how it affected her, the decisions she made. You see, when you're 5 and you say, if all the books are lined up just so I feel safe, the brain takes that as an absolute fact, but it's still doing it 35 years later. Mm-hmm. So she understood she made decisions with a life expectancy of a 5-year-old. She came to conclusions with the experience of a 7-year-old. She had no idea that these thoughts she was thinking would create havoc on her life because she was 7. And then she went back and kind of upgraded herself. So you find out what happened, you make it very clear to the brain this is redundant stuff, and then you wire in something new. You've got to code in and wire into the brain. We're so busy upgrading our phones, and we've forgotten to upgrade this, the most important software of all. And the brain can reshape itself very well. The brain is very, very patterned, both good and bad, and she had bad patterns, and we gave her good patterns. You have a shower, you leave, you're done. Clean your teeth for 2 minutes. You quite like the cushions being a mess. You hear your kids saying, yeah, that's a mess. I've got 3 kids and 2 cats. This is a happy home. It's not a showroom. It's not a hotel room. I love the fact there's cat hair on the sofa. I love the fact that my kids' socks are on the stairs because I remember I've got kids. So you have to rewire the brain to find pleasure in a bit of mess and pain in a perfect life. Mm-hmm. And it worked very well for her.
You've launched the I Can't to I Can challenge in the schools in the UAE for ages 6 to 11. Sure. What did you see in children that made you stop and build a program just for them?
Well, I saw that, schools make children compare themselves. So a child who is very good at coding might not be good at art. A child who's good at art might not be good at science. Another child might be very good at sport. And schools expect kids to be good at everything, so you become a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I always thought that was a very bad model. We can't be good at everything. We're here to find our gift and be good at that. So I didn't like that model. And I also saw that schools do something I really disagree with. They reward achievement. So the gifted kid writes an essay, gets the prize, but put any work into it. The kid who's writing it all weekend doesn't get a prize, because they're not looking at effort, they're only looking at achievement. Mm-hmm. And employing people, I love effort. I reward effort in my business far more than achievement. If I know someone spent weeks researching and writing, they're going to get a reward. Because that you were giving people the wrong message. We're teaching them to compare themselves. We're making them be good at everything. And, you know, I learned long ago that if you have someone in your business who's really good at writing, you say, oh, you're so good at writing. Can you manage the team? Can you do this? It's like, no, your gift is to be a writer. You just write copy. Your gift is marketing, then just do marketing. But a lot of employers, when you're good, they give you more work in another area where you're not good at, and then it's demoralizing. Okay. I'd never ask my accountant, after all, to write my copy. I'd never expect my accountant to be my marketer, but many businesses do that, and it's a huge mistake, as is micromanaging.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever ignored?
Gosh, I ignored so many pieces of advice. The best piece I've ignored would be probably believe in yourself, because I didn't believe in myself.
Everyone that watches this episode wrote one thing on their bathroom mirror tomorrow, what would it be?
I'm enough. In big capital letters, write it in lipstick, mark your mirror, change your life.
Well, Marisa, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an honor talking to you. And thank you so much on behalf of all the women that's been inspired by your work over the last few years. And thank you so much for being our very first episode on Karpool with Kirsten.
And if you go to marisapeer.com/free gifts, we have absolutely free audios on money blocks, love blocks, health blocks, career blocks. They're all free. Take them. Give them to other women that need them. You can take as many downloads as you like. And if you buy this book, it also has some downloads in it about rewriting your rules. When you've told yourself a story, it's time to change it. marisapeer.com free gifts. Take as many as you like. Lift up another woman.
If you're still with us, you can find Marisa at marisapeer.com. Be sure to order her new book, Your Mind, Your Rules. And if you're a coach or a therapist, you can train an RTT directly with her team. Links will be listed in the description below. This was episode 1 of Karpool with Kirsten, brought to you by Fempowerment. Hit follow so you don't miss who's next in our passenger seat. And until then, be a little kinder to yourself today than you were the day before. And remember, you are in fact enough.